and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there everyone, and welcome to this Galactic update with me today in this beautiful forest here in the Alps. So what I want to share with you today is that if I don't get these things out, my head will explode. That's how it feels like at this time, because there's this new upsurge of energy that is happening. Well, this is ongoing, as you know. This ascension of the planet and our own selves is happening as a gradual process. But last week, this was, I think, from Thursday to Friday, is when this new energy upsurge started occurring. When this happens is I usually will feel a very restless energy, because when this energy starts to move through our bodies, it will create almost like this push through energy, right? So it's almost like, you know, that burst of the seed once it starts to come out, you know, before it becomes something manifested, a new birth. So it's like that thrusting push that occurred. So that was, I think, last Thursday. I think it was the 23rd, 24th of March. That was right before the new moon in Aries, which is now. So what happened is I went to bed 2 nights. I couldn't sleep very well. I had this restless leg syndrome, which is what I receive when there's so much light pouring through, and I start getting these heat waves, and then I can't sleep because my legs and the whole body gets so restless. And usually what it helps me is when I get down on the floor, you know, put my legs down, my feet, so that the energy can channel through and get grounded. And I got up twice like this, and it didn't even help this time. It was just so intense. I was like, what can I do? Eventually I could fall asleep, but it was 2 nights of very restless energy. So when this happens, and for those of you who felt that and who felt this perhaps as a very strong current of energy, this thing, what's occurring is that this new wave of energy, for a lot of souls, this is very intense when they're going through this. And I'm going to explain during the course of this galactic update why for many of souls this is not so easy now to integrate. I'm going to explain to you different levels of souls in their journey here on Earth from a galactic point of view. Please note that this is within oneness. We're all the same in the sense of we're all born of the same source. We're different. We're unique in our soul journey and our variation of creation that I always stress to those of you. So we have different specializations and requirements as souls, right? So when we have that self-realized trajectory that's moving us on this right path, this is right for us. But what I want to share first and primary to this video is that a lot of souls continue to ask themselves the question of, okay, then what's my purpose? What's my divine nature of being here? Why am I here? And this question, you know, even in certain books that are hypnotic regressions, the therapists always say, well, that's the most commonly asked question, you know, that I get asked from my clients. And the thing is that this question, if it's overly asked, it becomes too synthetic. So it creates a lot of pressure within the domain of your physical experience, and you almost like in a natural sense start to look for something, and you start searching outside of yourself instead of just naturally tuning into who you are and just allowing life to lead you each step in the right path and trajectory. So that's the first common misalignment, is when we start over analyzing why we're here, right? So in my own journey, I have to tell you, my initiations and all my galactic knowledge is coming as a gradual process. It's never like complete, oh, now I know everything. It's, I get triggered on all levels. I get triggered in nature, I get triggered in my sleep, I get triggered with the things I read from here to here, and it's like bits and pieces, and they all kind of trigger me to get more and more revelations. And when for me it's an instant knowing, it will be like a direct instant download. That's what I call it. And it's an instant knowing, and all of a sudden there's people usually ask me, how do I know what I'm going to share about, or why my message is so aligned? Is because things fall together like pieces of the puzzle and make sense. So there's like this final unlocking that occurs, and then the energy's available for releasing and for me to share what I'm meant to share. So this week I wanted to have like a little bit of the holiday, but I couldn't because I was so restless with this new upsurge of energy, and like I said, my head would explode if I don't share it all. It's so much coming through, okay? So first thing that I really received when, you know, sometimes I call it like my bathroom portal, when I'm doing like the mundane things, you know, like brushing your teeth or going to the toilet. Why this is so, and you might perhaps notice this in your own life experience, that when you do mundane tasks, if you do them with awareness, right, and if you're really present with what you're doing, not like just this routine, or sometimes these basic commonalities, right, we all have in common, lots of guidance comes because our brain is relaxed at that time, because we're just in the body doing something of a routine nature, right? Just recently I saw this in the show Big Bang Theory, you know, and the guy is so smart, the scientist, super intelligent, brainiac. But then he said, well, I wish to come to this new knowledge, so I'm going to actually perform a routine kind of like job that's kind of like low on the level. That's how he labeled it. So I can get this knowledge pouring through. And for a lot of you, this might occur this way, and the guidance comes when you're doing the most random things, right? So instead of, try this perspective, instead of always asking yourself, okay, what's my purpose? So always asking, because you put a lot of pressure on that. Just try to get in the body, right? You will notice that the more you move into the body, and that's very important, or your energy will be too scattered and you won't be very focused in your embodiment. You will feel like you're going to be more gathered together. But also what's happening, and you know that recently I created the Tantrika Life Force Mastery video course, which is very long, very profound, but I've noticed myself that when I dive into the body and do lots of cultivation, I will perhaps, for example, need less sleep, because I'll be recharging during the day and the energy will be renewing itself. So what we were used to doing in the old, always, you know, getting tired, depleted, then you need to go to sleep. But sleep can never fully recharge you. You know, like the great yogis were saying, in the sleep, certain parts of your body can rest, but you don't rest the whole consciousness. So what they developed was a yogic rest. And when you go to yogic sleep, which is a conscious, aware state of sleeping, a dreamless state, is you also relax and rest your consciousness. So it's not just certain parts of you, okay? You might notice this. So that's the reason why I created this course, to get you in alignment of this natural recycling, not just recycling of energy like how you were used to, but spiritualizing the life force through the galactic core, bringing it through the creation breath in your body, and then renewing itself. So that was my main point, okay? When your soul gets in the body, that's the first thing I really feel to share today, is you help the scattered bits and pieces of you to come together. And that's why the embodiment work is so important. That's one aspect. The second message, what I said, you know, that I really received was this emptiness. So I was having one of my runs, and I was shown this, that a lot of the times we release, but we release partially. But what's happening now is there's, with this big wave of energy that's really strong, and I think some of the more galactic sources and extraterrestrial beings were predicting this for happening this spring, this year, 2017, and it's happening. I can feel it. You can really feel it if you're a very hypersensitive being. With this new energy wave, what you can experience is that there's a complete rewrite, even for those of you who were already feeling like I'm hypersensitive, tuned in soul, but you were still a part of the earth game. You still had this galactic history and everything, like memory, but it was kind of like overshadowed by lots of earthly things, so we couldn't have a full access to our galactic memory. That's what I received. So now with this clearing, is a lot of the souls are getting ready to kind of like get out of this constant recycling of energy, and that's why this embodiment process, and that's why what I created with the Tantrika Light Force Mastery is so important, because it has the ability to tune you into that galactic nature, galactic core, so that you will remember more of the galactic origin, history, why certain things are happening here as archetypes, how you are a part of them, and I'm going to talk about this in the last part of this video, these different soul parts and what's happening for many souls from different viewpoints. But I wanted to say that it's really important, that's why I received, to really clear that space, because a lot of the times we're afraid to fully release something, like a certain way we function, a certain routine kind of nature of our being, you know, certain things we do even. I'm going to explain why this is so true for many souls. So we cling on to this and we leave at least a little fragment of that imprint because it's so familiar. But that overshadowing of this earth history, because so many people now were dealing with earth's history and true origin on earth, so we couldn't really go beyond, but we exist beyond. And currently I'm going to be working on the second part of my Galactic signature course, which will be focused more on these stellar archetypes, the stories we bring in through our alignment, different star alignments we have, and it's very obvious in our birth chart as well. It's like a complete overview, so it's kind of like the extended version of the first Galactic signature course, and reading your stellar map and reading your soul's blueprint journey for right now but beyond. So this one will have more galactic history and archetypes. It will be more from that perspective of the Galactic course. So in the first course we were learning about the Galactic core and the influence in your chart and how you best function that way and how you best translate that direct source alignment energy. For me, that's very obvious. I have Neptune 12th house direct alignment position in the Galactic core, which is 27 degrees of Sagittarius, 26 to 27. Sometimes 28, but not so much. Okay, so the thing is there were a lot of us who are more advanced, and even us, we had to deal with the earthly stuff before we could access this new level. So this is what's happening now, and a lot of souls are feeling now this new energy. They're feeling this, but they don't know yet how to apply it in their lives. You can't really do that application and integration before you allow this, what you've worked on so far, and many souls have been working on past lives. I wouldn't actually say past lives, but in parallel experience, right? Something they've already integrated throughout their lifetime's experiences, not just here on Earth. But what we're moving now is this completely new, this new blank space, and that's why this energy activation is so intense. A lot of souls are perhaps feeling this as a total, what's this now? What do I do? How do I go from here? And there's fear related with this. Naturally, what comes in this earth plane and this physical experiences of ourselves, right, that feels also limited in a way. And I feel that's why Saturn is now making this conjunction with the Galactic center to show us where we still hold as those restrictions in sense of how we receive in relation to the Galactic core, because Saturn is bound to restrictions and limitations and time, and it's spirituality through maturation, and it's like that ancient being, right, that tells us, you know, this is how you go about it in terms of initiation here on Earth. So it's that interrelating station to that which is much grander. So we had to go through so many initiations during this path, and for a lot of you perhaps that felt like, oh my gosh, can I go more, you know, can I do more? How? I cannot, you know, I have already gone through so much. And that in a way was good, because it's not true that only souls who experience adversity and challenges are young souls. No, not at all, because certain souls who are here to assist others, like I said, will take imprints so they learn how to work with them in this earthly realm. But once you move beyond that, you will start tuning into greater galactic signatures and responsibilities that you also hold on levels that are much greater than just you in this body. So for me, for those of you perhaps who don't know me already, there's a lot of you who do. I'm a volunteer soul. I'm a very advanced soul that is not really from here. What this means is we're all from here and yet we're not, because we're here right now at this time. What this means is that my mastery was achieved on other planes of being, but I came here to Earth to also experience earthly mastery and to experience the assistance to others, because my mission is to create the assistance through realms of illumination and assist souls who are going through this transition in physical ascension. Specifically, my biggest specification and specialization is giving birth through the white light. So I use the white light. I teach people in a way, not teach, but show them direct implication of how they can work with the white light to become fully connected, fully illumined through that nature of our galactic core. So my transmission was always very direct, but at the same time I also had to experience this density. What's happening now is kind of we're moving and cracking beyond this, right? So I was shown that many of us as these souls, prior to coming here, we actually had to build stations that are like how I would say etheric in nature, right? So you know, I've probably heard about masters and master retreats. That's my next video. Okay, I already recorded it, so I'm going to share it after this one, so stay tuned. It's very important as well for our next level. So we had to create these almost like sacred spaces, because we knew how dense Earth is and what things we're going to be dealing with here, so that our energy could then be descending from those levels or realms, kind of like in gradual steps, as in this blending, emerging process. So for me, as I came to this space and I remember these Alps and why I was so guided to come here, and before coming here I had to walk so many hills and mountains, and I was the journeyer, I was the wanderer, I was the hermit in so many ways. And then I came here and I remember the home, this felt so familiar, not in terms of Earth is my permanent home and residence, but I felt the penetrating energy that I felt directly resembles the etheric retreat that I built and created. It was created on a much bigger level, much vaster level, and I had this memory of these white elven beings, and there was this, what it would be called, it could be called like a ashram of light, so the sacred etheric retreat. So directly from there, we kind of like, from what we plan and we create on much higher levels than we allow to precipitate in this physical realm as much as it can, and it's time. Okay, so that's first thing I want to share. So stay tuned for the next video. And what I did is I also created a light activation for you to visit that retreat, and then I made an audio recording from that as well, because my next station will be assisting people who come here to visit this space, who want to learn about the white light, how to work with the white light, and how to work with creation light in a sense of revitalizing their life force and to become a lumined being of light. Once again, after so many perhaps earthly experiences or many experiences in the physical form, to merge their form with a much lighter form and essence of their being. So this will be my main mission coming in times to come. And I will start this with offering physical visitations here. But for those of you who can't visit, you can visit by visiting the etheric retreat. So if for some reason you're perhaps feeling limited physically or restricted or can't come here, you can do so by tuning into the light activation that provides this. And as you know, all my links are always shared down below, how you can assist yourself if you feel a call and pulling in that direction. Okay, so that's one thing. With the clearing, right, that I mentioned to you guys, and you know, our ascension is directly related to the ascension of the sun, and our sun now got very active again after 2 weeks, I think, of a little homeostasis, of a little resting period. We got these geomagnetic storms again, and I usually feel this as a kind of like my belly area starts to cringe yeah, cringe. And I felt a little belly sickness, and I knew it was from the sun, and we always spend all of our days outside on the sun. And don't fear that, because when you do so, you are actually metamorphosizing yourself. Your sun is genetically altering you, because the sun has the encoding of all the planetary stations, everything, every single bit of galactic information comes through, and it's directly connected with the galactic sun. So you can also visit the solar consciousness course that I created for that, so you feel into that completion. That course has the completion of our journey, if you feel a calling there. And then the Tantrika is the 10th level that followed, which is now, okay, we've completed that, now how do we start tuning into this higher realms of our being? So I always do my courses in terms of direction of our expansion. It's like a direct translation, it's a subsequent, it's sequential, right? Because this is how we're expanding in these layers. Okay, so about this clearing again, I just can't go back to that, okay? It's too much coming through at the same time. We really need to do that, and the fears that will be coming up, which is, what do I do next? Okay, where will I live? What will I do? For a lot of souls who have completed their mastery, these are the synthesizing lives for these souls. These are the souls who have, in a way, completed these stations that they were practicing here on Earth, so that they're synthesizing. So this, I call this the synthesized life, and this is the life when you will start the spiraling journey of ascension. And this will be probably the most challenging life in a lot of terms, but most beautiful. You will have to learn to trust the bigger part of you, that it's always guided and directed through the galactic core. Okay, so that's why now I think these things are happening, and Saturn making a conjunction, and now Saturn goes retrograde, which will give us the time to integrate that, right? So there's different segments of how much we have integrated that, but what I received is just let it all go. You can do many exercises on this. I always work with the white light. You can try the previous video I did with the scanning of your body and working with the white light. Just tune into that and feel that completion, and how you can create that letting go through the white column of light. But what's also important is that you have to come into this understanding. You can't leave parts of you like in there, like you're leaving aspect of you behind. Like if you imagine you're walking on a trail and you're trailblazing, but you're kind of afraid how you're going to go back. So just in case, you leave tiny little pebbles, right, that will orient you back. you know, like many of the fairy tale stories, right? But the thing is, we're not going to go back. So why are we leaving those trails? Why are we leaving those little pebbles? Because the trailblazing in a way can be very challenging. But it gives you such profound mastery that, you know, it's very intense, okay? So it's time to really create that blank. Now it's this blank energy is most intense, and it started on the winter solstice last year. But because there's a lag behind, there's a difference in New Year's. Yeah, we have the solar New Year is in solstice, as we know it. Then we have the earthly numerological year, hard to pronounce. And it's, you say, okay, January 1st, that's our new year. But then we have many different sequences, right? And the real new year is in terms of the cycles of the year and the energy of the solar and lunar exchanges. And that's when the new year is the real new year, and that's the astrological new year that begins with the equinox here in the northern hemisphere. We know it as the spring equinox. But there's also the first lunation, and that's happened this week. So there's like this whole new year astrologically, which is the most important new year. So that's why you feel now what you've initiated during the winter solstice in 2016, and now you feel it. And there's like this new in-breath of creation that's happening now. And the souls who have synthesized their lives, they're now being almost like sucked into that. It's like you're being sucked, but you're not being sucked into the black hole, but in this white hole of creation light that expands you. So that's one thing, you know, leave nothing behind. That's was the message coming through. The second thing I want to talk about is the importance again of this embodiment, and I want to tell you this from the perspective of volunteer souls. If you've been reading some of the materials that talk about hypnotic regressions, like Newton's work, Journey of the Souls and Destiny of the Souls, but he speaks more from the perspective of the lives in between, so in the spirit planes. That's more his specialty and the knowledge he received, because, you know, each soul has a specific mission, what they're meant to share, so he's more sharing on that note. While Dolores Cannon's work also includes more of the extraterrestrial energies and not just the life in between life and death and the spirit planes. He shares a lot of that, how things are structured and or orchestrated there, and different soul specifications and assignments, and different soul energies in terms of how we serve and create. And Dolores brought forth more of the knowledge that's the advanced other worlds, other planes of being, things like that. So Newton also talks about hybrid souls. These are the souls who don't just, pardon me, visit other planes of being, visit other worlds, and, you know, like this earthly world, but they also have embodiments on other worlds and planes of being. I always tell you that the term that was coined, the star seed, in itself has no specific implication of how enlightened and illumined your soul essence is. And even he says that in his example, certain beings said even hybrid souls were able to do weird acts here on the planet. They were a part of different things that sometimes they were very horrible, because, you know, for some of them it was challenging to translate that and bring into the world of Earth, because Earth has, it almost has a completely different structuring, right? So that's a difference. The word that I use, volunteer soul, on the other hand, promotes more of you not just being a star-seeded being, because many beings who perhaps are star-seeds and there are hybrids, but they won't necessarily be volunteer souls. Volunteer souls are those who are always here to plant the seeds of assistance in service to others. So they work within the group domain, and their lives don't just belong to them, they're a gift to humanity. That means that they're here to share with the group. They're here to help the group. So when I remembered my own journey and I was shown bits and pieces of my soul and I couldn't feel this, I was like, why don't I have any of these memories? And it was very obvious to me when I had my own awakening in a gradual process that my mastery wasn't unfolding here. And this at first got me to feel like, ooh, am I an outcast? And it felt really weird, and I didn't understand why I don't have, like many of other souls have, soul families here. And the people that I meet, and they often resonate with what I share, or there's connections that are made. What I was shown is that most of these beings, we know each other from different councils. So I've shared with you before about the White Brotherhood of Light. This is the council, the ultimate council, the councils of 1,000 councils, right? All the suns are within the one sun. So you can date back the origin of the White Brotherhood to the Galactic Center. So these are the beings, and I always tell you that if you haven't heard this before, beings who serve the white light of creation in unity consciousness, they will have different various specifications within that. Doesn't mean they will be belonging to the same groups or same soul families, but they might perhaps know each other from different priesthoods, from different, you know, like service stations, if I can call it like that. So I meet people here and they won't feel like exactly same in terms of, no one is the same, but same in terms of the nature of our origin and purpose. But you will still feel very strong connection and affinity to those souls. These are usually the souls we know from these councils. And we recognize each other, we have great love and affinity for each other because of that. Okay, and when you are a true hybrid soul, but not just a hybrid soul, but then a soul that has illumined, and because of that you choose to assist others so they could be achieving their own mastery and they could be achieving their own liberation of the soul and their time, you're actually just assisting their own natural evolution course, right? So for me, it always felt like I don't just live my life for me. I never just had a life for me. It was always a part of the bigger thing, and it feels like a sacrifice, and it's not a sacrifice because you love doing it, because every bit of part of what you live belongs to the greater group. What you experience, it's a part of the group. And I talked about this before in my mission as a creation pillar. Creation pillars are those who carry this group signature. We bring forth the purity of a certain energy. So that energy at its primary descent, so that if you imagine like the flower of life symbol, right, it has 64 intersections, and these 64 are creation pillar energies, right? So that's what it means, that's what it's associated with, that's how Spirit showed it to me. And these primaries then overextend outwardly, and they create these different connections and ley lines and layouts. What's also important is to understand that on different levels our work is being created, yes? So when you have a broader scope, it just means, you know how some people do Reiki and do the energy healing and lots of different healing modalities too, and they assist other individuals, or they assist nature or plants, trees, whatever. There's beings who work more with collective energy packages, okay? So that's how for me it felt like we are, when I receive a certain energy, I have to work on the whole core creation misalignment to bring it back to that purified origin. So that's how I work, and that's mostly my domain. I do work with individuals too, but very rarely. These are specifically individuals that are in a way advanced enough that they are choosing that pathway, okay? So they're usually the ascending individuals, okay? More advanced souls. About this embodiment, yeah? Now let's go back to this. Why is it so important to be in the body? A lot of these hybrid beings, when they come here, they won't never feel fully anchored here. So without you being anchored both in the earth, so as above, so below, you master both aspects of creation, the dark room, this, and the light of creation, yes? If you don't feel yourself, you're not an antenna between the two, you're always going to be just a partial embodiment. Souls take in different parts of their energy, but that's not relating to that when I say and speak about this. This means that how much of that energy you take in, whether you still, you know, you will be able to fully ground it here or not. And a lot of these people will have longings or crying out to not be here, I want to be somewhere else. Doesn't necessarily mean they're fully illumined yet. So they need to learn to live the reality here, because the home imprint and the memory of the galactic nature is always within you. It lives within your divine blueprint. It lives within your soul's DNA. That's the light DNA you carry within you as that seed. And the more you ground your energy here, the more it will have the ability to be embodied. So I don't promote soul going out of the bodies. I promote soul embodiment, and one of my biggest missions is to talk about soul embodiment, because it's so crucial. You can't really function if your soul cannot fully expand and extend throughout your body. So a lot of my work is very physical. Even myself, my day-to-day reality and work is very physical. It's very active. I do lots of body work. I do lots of physical activity because it's so important, and that's a part of me being able to channel so much energy through. If you don't work with the homeostasis of your body and this equilibrium, you're always going to create a certain part of distraction for yourself. So there's souls who are not fully able to live their highest embodiment because they're not doing that work, okay? So without you being able to bring your full energy here, and a lot of souls don't want to do that because they feel that's going to make them earthbound. That's not the same thing. So being fully soul embodied is not the same as earthbound, right? There's like, oh, then it means I'm going to stay here on earth forever. When you look at the nature like that, your vision is not illumined. You don't have a higher understanding. What's the difference between being here and what's earthbound? Yes, there were souls who were and who are still earthbound. That means up until their evolution here is complete, they're going to remain earthbound, you know, and there's nothing wrong in the implication of that word itself anyway. But what I'm trying to share with you here is that you will feel a greater sense of moving up and at the same time moving down. And I teach this in all of my Ascension courses because you do need that for you to be fully able to be joyful and happy and blissful in this body. There's no samadhi without full embodiment, right? So that's one thing. I was recently reading a book from Dolores, The Legend of Star Crash. Super cute book, by the way. It's so cute. You know, there's beings, the white beings, tall white ones. They were known as the first ones, or the old ones that came there and had their story. They were supposed to fall down with their ship. They were looking for their new destination, and according to some of the research and what they were interested in, what they were looking into the constellations, they were interested in Pleiadian constellations. So they were obviously Pleiadian descent, and they brought forth their DNA complex because I think why they landed there is their mission was to influence the DNA, because as you know, Earth's DNA, physical bodies, these are our bodies that provide us as a hosting to be here on this planet. These bodies were a mixture of different DNA composites from, you know, all within the universe, different star races. So Earth is almost like a melting pot of these different influences. So they were each coming here, and they had at first such a hard time in adapting when they were merging with those who were there first as more earthly bodies that were developed just for Earth. So the primary bodies that were, as you could call them, the first Homo sapiens and so forth. So these were dark types, and these were the light types, much taller. And they slowly through time, they gradually adapted, right? So as I was reading those words, how hard it was for them at first, they had many issues. The sunlight was too direct, it was too intense for them, and they couldn't adjust. They were out of harmony with the Earth song. They had a different embodiment, right? So their bodies were functioning in a different way. So when they came here physically directly, it was very challenging for them. So that's why now this was a part of the mission there. That was way back ago. So when they were going through that, that was a part of the mission. But our mission now is that our souls directly come, not from the outside as beings in these bodies coming directly into the earth atmosphere and the earthly plane of being, but we, those of us who are from other planes of being, we gradually descend if we have a mission here. So we now enter it in the bodies, and Dolores' work reflects a lot of that, how these souls are the new souls. And what it means as a new soul is not the same as a young soul. A new soul is simply a soul that is new to this Earth's station, Earth's temple station. That doesn't mean they're new. Many times they're super advanced, right? But I think in Newton's work, he writes about hybrid souls as they were so used to different body complexes. Like you have a different body on a different stellar station, right? You're a different being, and your brain is wired differently, and all that you have there is different. When you come to Earth, you will still have that in your soul. So a lot of the translations, you will have to get used and adapt to this earthly living. For volunteer souls, this was this time up until now, and that's what I'm telling you now. This time is so important because those of you who've been doing the work and you've been grounding yourself and you've been doing the embodiment part of this process, you're gonna be feeling now more of your galactic memory is gonna spark up. You're gonna be tuning into and opening to greater capacities of understanding. You won't need to ask so much, why am I here? What am I doing? It will be such a part of the natural process. On the other hand, right, for the souls who have been mastering themselves on earth plane and they're now ascending souls, for them it's this new process. It is intense from another angle of experience because they had to let go so many of the things. Like many of the souls were leaving aspects of what they were accustomed to when they lived different lives. So a lot of the souls in their synthesis life, what they do is they travel to different destinations of this planet because they're gathering their energy back there. all the memories, everything they had. It's almost like they're bringing it back through the synthesis, and this is called the soul integration part, this journey. So these fragments you're leaving, they're not, when we talk about soul fragments, right, I have to bring this perspective through once again, because in case you've missed it, it's so important. Soul fragmentation never talks about that your soul energy gets lost and trapped somewhere. It's not that way. It's more like the soul is not fully free and sovereign because it has memory. It left holographic imprint somewhere that still kind of bind it to that place, right? So souls who are doing a synthesis of their life journey, they're starting their spiral of ascension journey at this time, in this lifetime, or in coming lifetimes, it doesn't matter. But when you come to this point, you will feel you're going to be journeying to these different spots, and at a certain point you will feel blank. But that's a good thing, because this blank, this void state means you've completed this. It means you've completed this, let's gather these lifetimes and these realities and my attachment to some of them perhaps. And now you're going to start this new life. What's also important is because the mission will change. What's happening for a lot of souls is they don't have to, go back to spirit's plane, go back to the spirit side, and then choose if they want to return to earth. What's happening now, because everything is so much speeded up, is these souls who are starting their ascension spiraling trajectory, their blueprint is being, it's almost like rewired. You don't have to visit the spirit side and then be reborn again in the body, because the body work takes a lot of time for you to get through the baby stage and all the maturation and growth stages. So it happens at the course of one lifetime that you shift from this inner, it's almost like an inner completion. And what happens is your energy was used only for your own inner ascension integration process so far, and your own soul integration. Then it will at the same time start to create this new space for your divine service, because souls don't necessarily have to leave. They can leave if that's a part of their choice, but they can also stay here once they shift to their ascension timeline. You can stay here because it's so important to stay here because of what we're also helping and assisting with the earth. So souls are now, as in comparison to what many people have been saying, wow, I want to go back to this star station, I want to go back to there, and this is my home. Well, we don't get to do that yet. Why? Because it's so important being here. Earth is a conglomerate of a specific DNA melting pot that is so important, and we're completing a huge part. It's like a huge leaf of the galactic history is being turned over. That's how I see it in my mind's eye. So it's so important, and instead of souls making their passing back to the spirit side and creating their spirit ascension there, a lot of them now are choosing physical ascension and stay here and assist, like many of the masters did before, and they physically transmuted their bodies and became this sacred vessel of the alchemy of love in flesh and form. Okay, so you have, like I've shared with you, different states where the souls are coming from. Some are first time ascending ones, and they're not perhaps choosing to go back on the spirit side or their home stations. They're choosing to stay here because of Earth's ascension and their own willingness to be involved in this process and to assist others. So it's almost like you don't go back, receive a new assignment, you directly become the embodiment of that new assignment, that new updated blueprint. It's hard to use that as in words because it sounds so technical, and yet it's not. It's all an act of love. So these are the first time ascending souls. There's souls who were star-seeded, but they still had many missions. They had many assignments on Earth, so they became earthbound, but only for a temporary cycle, right? It's not like their mastery was occurring on Earth as a primary basis, but they chose to be a part of the Earth cycle because they either had involvements with their home worlds, home planets perhaps. They needed something for the group, so they kind of like went here on a research program, and that research wasn't just one lifetime. It perhaps included many of the lifetimes, and many of these beings are also now completing these assignments, but they also can choose to stay here because of the importance of the major assistance here on this planet. That's one thing. And this, what I feel myself as a part of, is the illumined ones, who we're here as simple as stations of that highest light attainment for those who are ready. And we're like vortices of this primary extension of energy, and I say creation pillars, who are here just feeding that energy and reverberating it through the planet, and to those more advanced and these illumined souls who are now becoming illumined, and they're actually awakening all of this dormant DNA through the galactic history and origin and all of this remembrance. And I've shared this with you why this is so important for me. It's so important for me to live here in the Alps. Why? Because souls like me, we have to work behind the scenes, so we need lots of peace and quiet. I couldn't be in the city and do this mission because there's so much of the distractions there. So it's so many reasons. Part of it because I built my etheric retreat here, and I descend this energy directly. I draw it forward directly from there. But also because this environment is very pure. There's not a lot of influences, and people who will come here, they will connect with this purity of this energy here. They will make a connection, either not physically, so through the etheric activation, visitations. You can ask to have that before you go to sleep. I always tell people who really want to work with me, but they say, oh, I can't afford your services, or I can't do this, you know, and I say, I understand completely. Why? I'll tell you this. Because a lot of souls I know who I work with, they don't have so much financial resources because their primary foundation was not focused on money and goods, and you know, they were using all of their energy for their inner transformation and alchemy of the soul. They didn't extend their energy so much outwardly to the world yet. That's going to be their next part of the journey if they choose so. But for these souls, it's been challenging with the aspects of money and support, and I totally understand that. But I always tell everyone that for me, I also have to have this reverence for my physical body, and I get really tired if the energy exchange is not reciprocal in a way in terms of physicality. So when I do sessions with people, they have to be very extensive. I do 2-hour sessions with people that are very deep. I like to go deep. I like that depth committed work. But people who are saying, oh, I really want to somehow work with you, but I can't, I always advise them, there's not only the physical aspect of working with me. You know, there's different souls on different levels and stages, and my work is created as a platform to assist all of them. So my choice is always to work in a way that most of my knowledge and what I share has to come in this free form, right? So it's not so much fixed on certain individuals, you know, and you know, these personal sessions, this is only like an additional requirement for those who really want it and really feel calling in that regard. They need that push or something like this final edge or something like that. But my main structure, and I feel this still works for me, and it always will, because it's meant to feed that level where it can be most freely shared with the group. So I share it like this as free offerings, so that that which is a bonus can come only as a bonus. So if you feel a calling, how much I share here, how much I've shared during the years, you can support my work by simply freely donating if that's your calling, or you can support me on, I think, Patreon, things like that. Because my mission will always be to overextend this knowledge that I have and share these updates in a free version format. But then you have to do your inner work. If you're just listening and tuning to the words, that's not enough. And people who are doing the work, sometimes they will want to go even deeper and have a personal session or a visitation here in the Alps because they want to learn more advanced things. The things I'm going to be doing in the sacred retreats, which will start, the visitation will start this spring. These will be mainly meant for those souls who really feel this calling for advanced knowledge of physical transformation and metamorphosis in their bodies. The rest is still going to be like always, sessions, everything, offerings. If you have this feeling you really want to connect, like I say, but you can't somehow feel like I can't afford it at this time, don't just put it away like, oh, there's nothing for me there. Reach out, connect. Perhaps it's not expensive, just get this light activation with the Sacred Etheric Retreat. Visit the retreat, or I shared a video, it's coming up next. The activation will be there as well. But the one, if you want to do it before you go to bed, or it's just something you really want to do in depth, or you want to support my work by getting the Etheric Retreat activation, you can do that. I recommend doing it before you fall into either a deep meditative state or before you go to sleep, and then just make the connection, you know. I always tell people you can work with me on so many levels, you know, but we sometimes see things as just so restricted and physical, and we say, oh, woe is me, I can't do that, I can't afford that. Go deeper, okay? Love is everywhere. The humility of service is in all forms. So the reason why I structure my work this way is so that it can feed the most, and like I say, the life force goes where there's most potential, and that's why I have my offerings this way. So let me see if there's anything else to share. I think that's it. I think we covered a lot. So imagine that your body is a sacred vessel that, especially for those of you who are volunteer souls, unless you're very advanced and you know how to work with alchemy and you were very fast with upper and below and grounding it all, sometimes you still might have this notions when you can't translate all of your energy and you're ungrounded. So that's why I developed this work to help you by mastering your life force, becoming this happy, blissful being who's here to serve and influence all life with your joy, with your upliftment, with your radiant luminescence, okay? So check out my free song that I also created just today. It's called All Lovers Unite. It's a free offering. It was a beautiful melody I kept hearing all week, and then I was like lyrics coming through. I was like, okay, it was like a gradual process, and today I received the whole song. So it's a free sharing, but it also promotes my beloved music CD with the MP3s that are shared there. So if you are somehow called, make that connection. I always appreciate every single energy exchange that you feel somehow freely guided to offer, and thank you so much for your feedback as well. It helps me to sustain myself in the physical so I can just share so much, because I have to tell you, sometimes with me it's just too much, you know. I have this friend, and I said to him, well, this week I'm in a retreat, right? It's just for me. And he said, really? You're probably going to do this and this and that. And I said, no, really, I'm in the resting mode. And then after one day, I'm like, okay, you're right. I'm working again. I'm recording. I'm out. I'm just receiving. I can't help myself. I said, you're right. You won. You won fair and square. But it's just how it is. I love doing it. I just love sharing. It's just the nature of my physical body. Sometimes if it's too much, I can't always physically assist everyone in the way sometimes people want to, because in the physical I am also in a way limited, but my energy reaches out to every one of you. So even just by making a connection, like writing an email, not in a way to expect answers or guidance from me, because I cannot tell anyone what their purpose is. It's not within my domain. It's not what promotes sovereignty and unity consciousness. Work on yourself in that way. Work with the white light. It's free. It's your natural birthright. It's who you are, and you will achieve profound results. I tell you that you will. It's just how it is. It's just sometimes people are lazy and they want the results without doing the energy input. So if you are one of those beings who felt you've been so much integrating and just putting all of the energy investment in you, but you haven't yet expanded out in the world, a lot of the purpose within that scope will change. So the purpose that sustained you now was perhaps more coming from your individualized aspect. You're going to step more into divine service now. The purpose will change, but let that occur naturally, okay? So 3 main things that I can tell you today as a synthesis: work on the embodiment, right? Tune into what kind of soul trajectory, what kind of journey you're on. Don't get all, illusory, because sometimes people say, oh, this and that, but their life does not reflect that. Just really do the work so you can receive these answers directly from the galactic core. What's your nature? Why are you here? What are your specifications? What part of the group of the wave you belong to, right? So the mission becomes naturally evident when you do so. And the third part is, just enjoy this shift and don't leave any pebbles behind, because you're never going to go back the same route. Remember that. Okay, guys, I love you so much. Thank you for all your support, for your donations, feedback. I love you so much. Sometimes I leave my emails for a while because I was extensively working on my new projects at this time and the courses, and at that time I can't look at the emails. It's too much. It's just too much. So I leave it for a while, and then I'm like opening it as a wave, and then I attend to the emails. So if you're waiting for some kind of response from me, please do apologize. I do apologize. It is how it is, but I always get back to everyone in divine timing. I love you so much. I do. I love you. I love all life in creation, and I'm here to serve you. So make the call, make the connection. We're all one being in unity consciousness. Take care, and I hope you enjoyed this galactic update. Coming soon again. Bye-bye.